Let's go live to Tokyo now. Robert Feldman is head of Japanese economic research at Morgan Stanley MUFG Securities. Great to have you with us, Robert. Do you agree with the Bank of Japan's assessment of the Japanese economy?
Yes, I do. I think we are looking at a pause in the economy. Their own data from the Tonkan showed some slowdown in capex, but I think the Bank of Japan is a little bit late to this party in the sense that other forecasters were looking for such a slowdown a bit earlier than they were. So they do seem to be a little bit behind the curve.
How about this notion that Europe is a bigger problem than the strong yen? Do you buy that?
No, I don't. I think there are a number of issues facing the Japanese economy. The strong yen is among the largest. The electric power problems are among the largest. But something I think is very much missing, and it was quite disappointing in the BOJ statement, is any sense that deflation is at the root of a lot of the problems in Japan, including the strong yen. In the BOJ statement, they repeated the language that they've used earlier about the deflation issue, but there is no sense that they'll take any more aggressive action on the matter. They're still using a price index that does not reflect the true state of deflation, and they've used terminology for their interest rate policy, calling it a zero real interest rate policy in the Japanese original. In the English, they call it virtual zero rate policy.
So, Robert,
that's a mistranslation, actually, but it's not correct.
Why is it that the BOJ is behind the curve? Why don't they become more aggressive with asset purchases?
Well, a number of explanations exist for this. One is precedent. Central banks around the world simply don't like to change policy unless they're under pressure, and there isn't that much pressure from the government at this point, given that the government is more concerned with fiscal issues. I think there's a lack of understanding about some fundamental economic concepts at the BOJ, particularly this real interest rate issue that I mentioned. But there's one other thing that's important, which is the Bank of Japan alone can't end deflation. It needs help from the government on structural reform, and they're not seeing enough of that either. So all of those three things are at work at once, but basically the BOJ does still seem to be behind the curve because of their notion of what's happening here and their, in my view, incorrect choice of indicators.
2.2%. That's how much the government says the economy in Japan is going to grow next year. Does that seem a bit optimistic to you?
It does to me. We have numbers that are much lower. We do see the government spending a lot of money on recovery, but we're quite concerned about the impact of the strong yen, about the impact of the electricity problems, and weak capital investment by the corporate sector. Anything companies are doing to build capacity is going to be done abroad. So our numbers for next year, even with the recovery spending, are more in the 1%, low 1% range.
Japan doesn't seem to be able to catch a break. It was recovering. Deflation looked like we might have the end in sight. And then, of course, the earthquake and tsunami. And then as they're recovering and rebuilding from that, the European debt crisis worsens. When is Japan? What's it going to take to get this country out of the cycle it's been in for decades now?
Well, I think there are a number of things that are necessary. The first and foremost is a change in their attitude toward productivity growth. This is the essence of growth policy, and we've only seen small steps on issues like educational spending, R&D spending, things like that, to raise the productivity growth. We need to end deflation and end it decisively, and the Bank of Japan and the government itself have been a little too slow on that. We need some major changes in the way social spending works in this economy, as we do in Europe and the United States. They're not even able to pass 100 yen per doctor visit charge for people in the older age medical system, even though they want to expand benefits elsewhere in the system. So that needs some work. There's also things to be done in the structural reform side and the tax system and in the corporate sector. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
All right. Robert Feldman, head of Japan economic research at Morgan Stanley MUFG Securities. Thank you so much for your time.